Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market. This is our daily show from Monday to Friday, every day of the week, where we discuss all things to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to make money by leveraging the internet and the latest technologies. I'm your host, Bchek. I'm a former teacher and lawyer in the UK. Now I collect NFTs, I trade NFTs, and I write about them too. I'm the author of The Snapshot. It's pinned up top. It goes out daily on Twitter and one time per week in newsletter form. I am joined by my legendary co-host, Legendary, the OG NFT collector, the airdrop extraordinaire, and the trusted Web3 advisor of artists, brands, and businesses to bring to this conversation his wealth of experience and knowledge of crypto and NFTs. Legendary, you notice I did not mention the timings of the show today. Had a little bit of a nightmare there. What's going on?
GM, everyone. I don't know what's going on. It's, again, very confusing, but at least I figured out it is Monday today. I had a fantastic weekend.
Good.
We talked a bit about it before the show. Taking some time off, taking both Saturday and Sunday off was actually super helpful because it boosted my productivity this morning so much that I'm all happy, smiling, and excited for the week.
It's very good. I was looking across the NFT market over the weekend, and things are very, very positive, very, very encouraging across the board. You'll see the headline today is to do with Mocaverse NFTs. Can't wait to discuss those in a bit. We've also got stuff on Flooring Labs, which is pretty important, and some Jack Butcher and Snowfro collaboration news to bring to you in just a moment. But as we just said, Legendary, like the timings for the daylight saving time, this is a very confusing thing. So typically we've said ever since the show started, 7 a.m. Eastern time, 12 p.m. BST, I believe we've lost an hour on the States at the moment. I'm not sure about this. What's your take on changing the time? Can't we just keep it the same now? This doesn't help in Web3, does it?
I don't even like the concept of time zones. I would just love if everyone were on UTC, and some people wake up at 10 p.m. in the morning. Some wake up at 2 a.m. and we just have one time zone. You just have to use, culture to the fact that for some people in the world, the morning is 4 p.m. and for others it's still 8 or 9 a.m. That would be a fun thing to do. But with that being said, that, we did the time change and the US will do it in a week. Isn't it even 1 hour earlier for NFT stats right now? I mean, I know it's super early. Or is it 1 hour later for him now?
It can't be 1 hour earlier. I mean,
it has to be 1 hour later because he's always super early when he is with us. But I hope it's 1 hour later and it's not like 4 a.m. or something.
I think Sam liked the tweet when I mentioned that about the time change. So I hope I'm guessing that's because it might be 1 hour more convenient than a 4:45 in the morning. Sam, welcome with us. Is this 1 hour better for you potentially?
It's 1 hour better, yeah. Although I will say, at the old time there were no other spaces at the time. Now you're kind of coincide with GM Market, which whatever. Easy Bodega runs and Steve's is now. So I think you used to have a monopoly on the time slot for the people I listen to, whereas now there are a bunch of people. But I'm sticking around, B-Check. I'm not going anywhere.
Legend, absolute legend. Yeah, as you say, we've got a bunch of competition now, Legendary. So it will be interesting to see how we shake out in that respect. But it's only for 5 days anyway. Is there any chance, Legendary, that if could we keep this as our time slot? If we crushed this American time slot, would you consider keeping it? This is not something we've discussed, not something we've even contemplated. What do you think?
Very good question. So that means from next week on, we would have to move it 1 hour later from our perspective then, right?
Potentially.
Yeah. I mean, it would work better than moving it 1 hour earlier. That would mess with my entire schedule for the week. 1 hour later potentially would work.
Yeah, 1 hour later.
Where I live, there is no daylight saving, so it's like pitch black at like 7:30 in the morning here.
What do you mean there's no daylight saving, Sam? As in your clocks will not change at any point?
The clocks will never change now, and this is the first year they do it. So this was actually a change the government made. They said we're not doing daylight savings anymore in Colorado.
Amazing.
Is it a state thing or is it a federal thing though?
I think I don't think it's federal. I think it's state. but I'm not exactly sure who made that rule. I'll ask my best friend ChatGPT.
That's fascinating, because I would have thought that would throw everything in this like state by state out of kilt, right?
Yeah, you just gotta. Yeah, it's a little confusing, but it just means that it gets like, at least for us, the impact is it's super dark at like 7:38 in the morning, and
God.
it stays light a little bit longer.
Okay, interesting. Things getting out of kilt. I've just kind of accepted that all of my calls this week might not be as they were intended to be. So things might be a little bit out of kilt. Let's get into the NFT market, which has not been out of kilt. It's been on the way up, from what we can tell. We're going to get into the headlines and the price action in just a second. But before we do that, as always, please do help us out by clicking that comment button on the right-hand corner, where you can retweet the spaces so we can get as many people in here with us as possible. And as always, if you want to follow along, the snapshot is pinned up top. It has all of the details I'm about to share. So please do like it if you find that it brings you some value today. So let's get into it, starting with the price action. We have, here we go. Starting with the price action, we've got Bitcoin up 1% at 34.5K. We've got ETH up a couple of percent at 1.82. Solana up 8% again at 34.9. Ape up a couple of percent at 1.4. NFT volume total is at 9.8. Blur at 6.1. OpenSea at 2.3. Getting into the headlines, we have Mocaverse introducing Realm Points. It runs up to 1.2 ETH floor when I checked last. That's up 75% in the last week. Going to get into that in just a moment. Got Ambassador Sammy with us. Hopefully he can share some thoughts there. Number 2, Jack Butcher and Snowfro OPEPN collaboration goes live. Those look absolutely sick. Want to dive into some of the comments that Snowfro made on this collection. And then finally, Flooring Protocol experiences first bank run when Captain's vault was emptied and the team swept more captains to replenish. You may be very excited when I say the captain's prices in just a second in the rise. But again, some of that rise is caused by the Flooring Protocol needing to buy more. So we're going to dive into that in a second and explain that. Getting into the floor prices and the top sales, we have a Medusa DGOD selling for 110 ETH. That's $197,000. Got a CryptoPunk VR selling for 57 ETH, which is $104,000. And we have CryptoPunks at 46 ETH, Bored Apes at 29.6, up 3%, Mutants at 5.6, DGODs at 3.1, Captains up 10% at 6.1, Azukis at 5.2, down 1%, Penguins at 5, Moonbirds at 1.99, Nouns at 27 ETH. Legendary, that is the price action. Those are the headlines. What numbers are you enjoying today, Legendary?
Definitely the DGOD sale. Almost dropped my phone in it from my nice little stand. It is the rarest DGOD in the collection. It was a long time holding of the DGOD's whale, Orkan. I'm not sure how to pronounce their name.
Correct.
And it got picked up by no one else than Pre-Launch Capital, who made a post on it that he is picking it up. He's taking the torch from him by acquiring this grail. This one-of-one Nebula Medusa is now part of the Billboard assets of Flooring Protocol, and he wishes him the best for his future endeavors. May DGODs make the best comeback in history and make every holder and past holder proud.
What does that even mean? Like, how at this point, any big sale or any significant rise in any project is almost always as a consequence of significant activity by the Flooring Protocol. Like, it's pretty nuts at this point. No?
Yeah, I mean, did you see the other post by Pre-Launch Capital making the point that their wallet is now the 10th biggest NFT wallet at all?
Yeah, I saw that. Let me bring it up. We've got the...
It's 12,000 ETH in that wallet worth of NFTs across, what is it? 3.5K NFTs in total.
Yeah, the 10th biggest NFT wallet after swallowing 51 So they bought 51 captains yesterday. So when we explained that the captains had a 10% rise up to 6 ETH, it's because Free Lunch Capital said they bought 51. We'll explain why in a second when we get into the kind of breakdown. But the balance sheet of the Flooring Protocol is currently 118 Bored Apes, 309 Pudgy Penguins, 251 Azuki, 243 D-Gods, 113 Mutant Apes, 900, is this right? 946 Azuki Elementals, 637 Utes, 51 Captains, 84 Clonex, 45 Miladies, 52 Moonbirds, 111 Only Force, 197 Beans, 250 Nakamigos. And look, I'm just going to stop there, but there's more. Like that's, I'm just going to stop at that point. Legendary, what do you make of this?
I mean, we spoke about Flooring Protocol many times. We spoke about Free Lunch Capital's purchase behavior that is pretty much unparalleled in the space. But again, I also think if you want to bring NFT fractionalization to the Web3 space, you just need that insane amount of liquidity and assets. So many other platforms try to do NFT fractionalization, but never got that adoption. And you obviously have someone who has the capital to just drive a very solid initial foundation for the platform being able to build and thrive on, then it is Free Lunch Capital who can pull it off.
Sure.
Why do you say that, Legendary? Why do you think it? I mean, let's just say they bought 20 elementals. Do you think there's and fractionalize them and people could buy shares? You think they need 900 for this to work?
No, I definitely agree with you. They don't need 900 of them. But I just think if it weren't the 10th biggest wallet in the space, if they didn't have 900, we wouldn't report on it, others wouldn't report on it, and you just make a more massive impact across the timeline if you have that insane amount of holdings.
Yeah. It's a very expensive marketing strategy if that's the case.
Yeah, you said it last week, right? You've never seen someone like Free Lunch Capital throwing around money or having that kind of purchase behavior in this space. And I think that's definitely something that stands out marketing-wise on the one hand. On the other hand, it makes me anxious a bit when it comes to something we also touched on when it comes to his goals with that project, because my assumption would be if you spend that insane amount of money on something like Flooring Protocol, you would probably also have higher expectations as to when you deem that project successful.
I think ultimately, he's going to lose a lot of money on these buys just because he's the only buyer out there of anything near this size. But I think he doesn't care. So, to the extent that this is about finding ways to benefit from other people's liquidity, maybe there's some opportunities there because, if I can't, there's just no way that there's a natural buyer on the other side of what he's buying. I think setting these numbers is kind of like saying what's in the Blur wallet, though. I mean, I'm sorry, the Blend wallet. It's not super relevant in the sense that other people are putting their NFTs there as well. But wallets that he's funded have bought over 200 Moonbirds. So, I mean, it's almost a separate question of this wallet, yeah, that's one thing, but that you're competing with the Blend wallet and other protocol wallets, Nifty-Fi, like stuff that doesn't really matter that much. From an individual perspective, but the stuff that he's personally bought, I can't imagine there's a number 2 anywhere in the NFT space, other than maybe the Yuga Punks wallet or whatever.
Yeah, no, definitely makes a lot of sense. The only other thought that I had when you asked the question of, does he really need almost 1,000 elementals to do this, is if the goal for the protocol were to move forward to have at one point have those fractionalized share tokens listed on centralized exchanges where you probably, I would assume, need deeper pockets to move into, but I don't know if this is a long-term goal. So that's clearly just me speculating on that.
Yeah, my thought on it was that, and I don't know in any way if they'd be able to recoup their initial investment. I do think at least in part it has to be a marketing strategy, albeit one of the most expensive ones, and maybe one of, it's unclear that will be a profitable one. But I thought that, given that there will be a token, this FLC token, is there a way for them to self-allocate such a proportion? And if they can build the protocol up to such an extent, attract so much liquidity, that maybe that allocation of the token to themselves and the team and the advisors might add up to a significant amount. Now, I completely appreciate that the number is just outrageous. And also that point you made, Sam, about the personal stuff, like there's just a whole bunch of NFTs outside of this, which also are kind of unaccounted for when it comes to maybe the marketing spend as such. But yeah, that was my thought. What are your thoughts?
I think that's true. I think that there are a lot bigger buyers of, of tokens than there are of exit liquidity for your NFTs. So, maybe there's a case there that's the angle, and that's how they're going to make money on this. At the end of the day, you do need someone to buy that token from you.
Sure.
But yeah, I think that exit liquidity, the market has shown, is a little bit more plentiful than the PFP exit liquidity market.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Legendary, shall we just, since we've just gone on to the Flooring Capital situation straight away, shall we do the Animoca stuff next? And do you want to explain this bank run that Free Lunch Capital explained that they went through yesterday with captains, which led them to need to buy 51 or 61? Oh, audio.
Oopsie, wrong unmute button. Still difficult. I can't use the one on my phone, have to use the one in StreamYard. Sorry, my bad.
All good.
Definitely, let's do that first, and let's then transition into the Animoca news.
Yep.
Free Lunch Capital posted that they had their first bank run, as you perfectly said that, and he explained it a bit more, that they have a system balancing the amount of NFTs that are in the vault and also the amount of NFTs that are in the safe boxes, which we explained are the mechanism that Flooring Lab uses to capture that rarity premium on non-floor NFTs. And they're looking at the balance, the reserve ratio, where they look at the vaulted NFTs compared to the total NFTs. And they have a mechanism in place that when that ratio falls under 40%, so when there's less than 40% out of the total NFTs that in the vault, they are making renting a safe box exponentially expensive. However, they had this protection disabled during that bootstrapping period, which is when they had less than 20 captains in. And they had the situation that they ran into where they only had 9 captains in the vault. The protection was off because it was under that 20 NFTs minimum. And someone found out about the opportunity that they could get all of them out of the vault, lock them into a safe box, and that led to the situation that the vault became empty, which is a problem because it would lead to the token, the fractionalized token, to depeg, because nobody can redeem for anything in the vault if the vault is empty, because there's just no NFT to redeem for. And the quickest rescue that they could do was to just sweep a bunch of captains and dropping them into the vault, which is what obviously Free Lunch Capital did to basically save the situation. And that's only an issue if that protection is off, which again is under 20 NFTs that are being held in total.
Got it. So trying to understand this appropriately, it's kind of like when you're providing liquidity on coins, you need two-sided liquidity, right? You need the one currency which you've got, and then you need the other asset as well. So obviously, if one side goes to zero, then the other thing can't be redeemed for anything, which means there's a huge imbalance, and that's a problem. What are your thoughts about this being something that is possible? It's obviously quite worrying, and it also means that if it ever becomes the case that there are more, it's a kind of a structural weakness where basically the flooring protocol will be obliged to always buy more of any project which is redeemed for to a greater degree. Is that fair?
I think the analogy is not perfect with the liquidity pool, but I do understand where you're coming from with it. And I think the important takeaway there is that this mechanism that is in place once you have more than the minimum 20 NFTs, that again makes the renting of a safe box exponentially expensive once the ratio falls under 40%. And it's something that Free Lunch Capital explained as well, saying that they will add this critical reserve tax to stop the exhaustion of the vault. So right now, he updated in another post that reserve ratio is at 14%. So if you want to get a captains out of the vault, you need to pay 38K in FLC tokens to do so. And the lower the reserve ratio, the higher the tax. So ideally, this would lead to a point where if you think you have an arbitrage opportunity by just emptying the vault, and then causing the underlying token to depeg because nobody can redeem for an NFT, that the cost to do so in FLC is exponentially higher than the opportunity that you would see by doing that, basically eliminating that arbitrage opportunity. But it's a system that you probably have to monitor constantly then, because obviously the price of FLC will also fluctuate. And you just need to make sure that there's no way to find an arbitrage opportunity and depeg a token on purpose, which is kind of good that, it is happening in the early stages of the protocol when all you need, I'd say, quote unquote, all you need to do is just sweep a bunch of captains and fix the situation, which is still an expensive task to do. But it's something that, compared to just what we talked about, all the spending that has been going on is manageable. As to if this were to happen in a later stage situation, and then you would have a serious problem because there might even not be enough liquidity on the NFT market to fix the issue and stop the token from depegging.
Interesting. So a lot of moving parts in that. Was there any explanation for why it was not switched on? So it said that this protection is set to disable during the bootstrapping period when there's less than 20. What's the thinking there?
Very good question. Don't have an answer to it really, especially if we looked at the overall numbers and seeing how significantly they are above 20 in the other holdings. I don't have an answer.
Yeah, interesting. Well, it's definitely an interesting dynamic, and it's obviously got knock-on effects for the whole NFT market when you know that someone may need to buy 40 to 50 of an NFT, which is going to significantly change, significantly move the floor price at any given time. So thanks for that explanation, Legendary. I think that makes sense. I hope that was helpful to the people tuned in, because I think it's important to try to understand. I know it's quite complicated. And actually, one of the things I'm going to be doing is playing around on the protocol. I did a little bit this morning, but need to do some more to really figure out the dynamics more precisely. And ultimately, I think that's the way you really learn. You got to get involved to feel it, to understand it properly. Interesting there, Legendary. Should we move on to the next headline, which is the Animoca news? Shall I set that one up? If you change
Absolutely.
the title,
I changed the title. Happy for you to set it up.
Excellent. So to be honest, I wasn't 100% certain what caused this in its entirety, but the Mocaverse NFTs are up 80% in the last 7 days. I believe about 7 days ago on the 24th, they were around 0.65 ETH. They've now gone to a 1.2 ETH floor. One of the more recent announcements, well, there's been two things going on, I think. There's been some information about Mocha ID, which has been quite interesting. And then they also announced Realm points just a couple of days ago. Whale produced a nice tweet just earlier today explaining Realm points. So I'll just explain that so you can get a sense of what's going on there. Then maybe you can reflect on Mocha ID, and then love to hear Sammy's thoughts as well as an ambassador for Mocaverse. Kind of see if there is any deeper explanation for this significant recent rise. So Mocaverse has introduced realm points a few days ago. These points are closely linked to the new Mocha ID. So not the same necessarily, but closely linked. When you participate in activations, you can earn realm points that build up your on-chain reputation over time. You can then use the points for exclusive experiences, upgrade your Mocha NFT, or spend them on digital and physical goods and benefits. In collaboration with numerous business partners, all of this results in a real loyalty program, which Mocaverse calls their frequent player program. You can also earn more points through a referral program. The more realm points your invitee collects, the more realm points you earn. So it sounds like realm points is like a fully fledged loyalty program. So that sounds interesting. And then I guess the only thing to be contrasted with is the explanation a few days ago of what the difference is between realm points and Mocha XP, which is another kind of their points system. So realm points is meant to be considered as the fuel powering the whole on-chain identity. Mocha XP is, and this is a quote, your battle scar unique to Mocha NFT holders earned through staking Mocha NFTs, hustling and competing in Odyssey activations, voting in MIPs, and more. So it seems like Mocha XP has a bit more of a governance perspective, a bit more to do with staking, whereas realm points is more to do with activity and loyalty. Realm points are credentials accrued to your Mocha ID. It shows how active, skilled, and influential you are. And that's my TLDR. Legendary. Any thoughts on that? And as to the significant rise, I've got a big thought as to the significant rise, which I want to give after you, and then would love to hear from Sammy.
I think the only addition that I would make is just a quick clarifier for those who might not know what Mocha ID exactly is. The TLDR is on-chain decentralized identity, gives you access to the 450 plus portfolio companies of any Mocha brands. And also they see it as an identity that helps you, that kind of ties into the loyalty program, navigate both Web 2 and Web 3 experiences. And I think it's been a bit of a story in the making. We had the $20 million raise. We had the announcement of the Mocha ID and a couple more details around that. Now we have the addition of the loyalty program. So I just think that a team managed to share like a very captivating narrative, even if you expand it over the last 30 days. I think the floor price a month ago was at 0.4-ish. At 1.2, that's a 3x from there. And it is, to me, it is a bit similar to Flooring Labs. If, we talked about how massive that wallet is. Similarly, you could make the argument how massive the ecosystem of an Mocha brand is with the 450 plus portfolio companies that you, in whatever form that might look like, we don't know that yet, right? You will get access to via the Mocha ID. You again have a very solid underlying to build decentralized digital identity structure on which you don't need to start from scratch by finding people who actually want to use that, because you have such a massive ecosystem in place already.
Absolutely. I think all those things are valid, in particular, the realization that this is Animoca doing it, and this seems to be their flagship. I mean, I know they've got their hands in many pies and are doing various things across the ecosystem, but this seems to be their flagship entrance into at least the profile picture ecosystem. The key realization for me actually came last week, and I didn't have enough time to reflect on it until the weekend when the price had already gone up so much. But it was kind of to do with all of our discussions around ape governance and how we learned that each Mocha NFT holder has a proportional vote as part of it's not Animoca's vote, but as part of that project's vote, each NFT holder has a proportional representation in that. And then that just made me think, like, that's such a significant power. And we've been speaking about how we think, in our opinion, this has been disputed in some ways, because for a long period of time, it's been almost impossible to get people to care about on-chain governance. But we've noticed a trend in the last week or two where these votes are starting to get more popular. People are reporting on them way more. People are kind of excited about it. You often have two big factions, and people like seeing that competition between the two factions and trying to be like, well, I, and then backing particular people. And just people are kind of intrigued by watching that fight play out, whereas that just didn't happen before when it came to on-chain governance. So I just think it's very interesting that it has become obvious that this ecosystem is very, very well placed, if it wasn't obvious already. So I think that's one of my first realizations. I've got another one to give as well, which I'll give in just a moment. But Sammy, would love to bring you in here and hear your thoughts as an ambassador for Mocaverse. What's your thoughts on, this really, really, really fast rise, 70% in the last 7 days? And also, just to check, we've got we're thinking about the Mocha XP and the realm points in the right way. Would love your clarity on that.
Yeah, so I think there's a number of factors that probably contributed to the pump in the price, but like you said, the ape coin allocation, I think Mocaverse is probably second in terms of the total number. I think they're around about 3.8 million ape. If you look at Machi, who's the lead, who's got about 5 point something million. But if you combine, I guess, Mocaverse's ape token allocation with Yatsu's, who I think is probably about fourth as well, you're pretty much on a par with Machi. So they have significant clout in the ape council sort of governance process, which is a pretty powerful tool. And I think Wales mentioned something previously around that with, if you effectively took half the number of mockers, you could pretty much sway that whole vote. So it's just an interesting point. But yeah, the whole Mocaverse ecosystem is effectively a rewards program, and I can see Tyler and Aman in the crowd. So they're part of the core team. So they might have some more insights, but ultimately it's supposed to be this innovative rewards program that's using all these partner companies, so these 450 portfolio companies within the Animoca ecosystem, to try and unlock value that otherwise independently they probably wouldn't do so. So they've already engaged, I think the first season of Mocha's rewards program, there's a bunch of people that competed for thousands of dollars worth of rewards from, I think, 3 different experiences so far. And that's just 3 partner portfolio companies. And I think over the past few months, there's been another load of announcements, and there will be a lot more in the pipeline. So you've got this huge conglomerate with a number of different partners that have different value propositions that actually, if you combine them, which Mocaverse is that glue that does that, the electricity that kind of goes through the whole ecosystem, you could have this extremely powerful rewards program that is ultimately decentralized. And I think the announcement around the realm points, that's effectively the means of measuring your contribution as a Mocha ID holder within that ecosystem. So the more you contribute, the more points you get, and the more value and rewards you can unlock from these ecosystem partners. So yeah, it's an incredibly powerful tool, and I think as you see more partnerships or more partners within that Animoca ecosystem engaged, it's going to become a lot more valuable.
Yeah, super interesting. I think that's all really valid. You mentioned all these types of partnerships, and Animoca kind of being the electricity that goes through all of them in some respect.
Mocaverse would be the electricity.
Sorry, I got the metaphor incorrect slightly. Am I right in thinking this is the focus going to be routinely in the gaming universe, or do you think that the loyalty will expand beyond into other aspects of Web3?
Gaming is going to be a huge part of the Animoca ecosystem. I think Yatsu quoted there's 140 gaming partners within the entire ecosystem. So what's that, like close to 30% of all the portfolio companies are gaming. So gaming will play a huge part of that, and ultimately people enjoy playing games to try and receive rewards. So there will be that, but like you mentioned, there are wider range of potential partners that can bring completely different value propositions. I think if you look at what WeBox recently, they're in the anime business, so collectibles and a bunch of other things within the anime realm. So you could see that kind of coming into play. I guess the comparison would be Azuki. But that's WeBox is within the Animoca ecosystem. It's one of the portfolio companies. So that could be a very powerful way of engaging a completely different market segment outside of those that just want to game. And I think that's where the value is. It's so broad and so diverse that you could pique so many different people's interests. So, say there's a Mocha ID holder that's trying to compete for reward points, but isn't particularly interested in playing games. There might be other partner rewards that they're more interested in. So it's going to incentivize them to want to compete and engage within that ecosystem. And ultimately, attention and engagement is what gives that whole sort of the Mocaverse rewards program meaning and value.
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot, and I like the idea that, okay, fine, you can have your primary focus, which may be gaming, but even when I speak to companies at the moment who have built significant or reasonable sized communities, I guess once you've built the community, there's no reason to necessarily limit yourself to that very, very core focus. There will always be opportunities for thoughtful partnerships, and it's not like that anyone wants to sell their community in any way to monetize them in any kind of quick and fast way, but there would be cool alternative opportunities in this universe that people would find interesting and exciting. And I think if you do that in a thoughtful way, then why not? People are very committed, very exploratory in this space. We're all kind of at the frontier of a bunch of new stuff, so we're all kind of open to doing new stuff, exploring new things, trying new things. So I'm very open to that. Sammy, any final thoughts? Then I'm going to go to Legendary to hear his thoughts.
No, I'm obviously bullish and slightly biased, being working with the team, but yeah, it's something that I find extremely innovative. There's a rewards program, the basic way of doing it, but this takes it to a completely different level, tries to decentralize it, and also integrate a layer of lore with the whole storytelling with the Mocana realm and all these different Mocaverse characters. So I think there's like an IP layer to it as well that could be quite interesting, and we could see a further developments there that could be could effectively put Mocaverse and Animoca on the map from a outside of Web3 perspective as well.
Love it. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I think the loyalty stuff is cool, and I think they're very well positioned to build the loyalty out really well. I do think that's one of the intentions that might be more common amongst various communities to try to build a strong loyalty thing. The thing that's really got me excited, and I know I've already mentioned it, is this governance element that not the tie to, but the ability to participate in the ApeCoin DAO. I think all of that is super fascinating, and the fact you've got that layered on top, I find really cool. Legendary, want to check in with you for your thoughts, and then I see we have Tyler has just hopped up with us. He is, according to his bio, the servant to Mocaverse, but I understand he is also the head of projects at Animoca brand. So I'd love to hear his thoughts in just a second too. Legendary.
Yeah, I'll hold my thoughts back for a second because I know Tyler's in a rush and has a call coming up soon. So I will let him speak first and go directly to Tyler.
Amazing. Welcome, Tyler.
Thank you for hosting this with a huge Mocaverse name and as a title of our spaces. I think Sammy actually said it very well in terms of Animoca Brands is pretty well and uniquely positioned to build a frequent flyer program, and in our case, it's a frequent player program because we want people to have fun, and it's not just gaming because Animoca has basically a huge portfolio and not just gaming, but music, sports, entertainment, and such, and even education and healthcare as well, right? So I actually mentioned about this to Sammy before in terms of the healthcare project. For example, GoKey is a healthcare business, and basically they have a deal with NHS, for example, to store healthcare data in the UK, right? So that application alone has 40 to 50 million users, and so that is just one part of the vertical. But then, like, there are many other verticals, such as Pixel Links, right? Pixel Links is a music metaverse project founded by Dat Mouse and Richie Houghton. I'm not sure if you guys are aware who they are. They're basically really top DJs and musicians. So it's not only limited to gaming. And I would say what's interesting about what we would build is to really keep experimenting with what a meta layer should be. And I don't see a lot of really deeply integrated meta layer out there. And I think Animoca Brands is very well positioned to build that meta layer. It can be meta social experience, it can be meta gaming experience. So our strategy is basically surrounding three main things, right? One is identity, second is growth, third is social. And the objective of growth is really bringing project growth, user growth, bringing that positive value into the ecosystem, building a common layer that actually connects across the whole ecosystem, having a common layer to bring growth to the ecosystem. So yeah, I think we're pretty well, uniquely positioned to try this out. And myself, I'm the type of person that I love meta experiences because it's very easy to digest, and basically it's fun, right? It doesn't consume a lot of time to actually be part of that meta experiences, but then you have very diverse experiences that you can actually, for example, engage with your fellow Mocha ID users through that meta social experience. So there's a lot that we have in the pipeline. My product team is gonna kill me, but I have tons of ideas around how we should build this out and what kind of interesting mechanics we should test out with this. And the points is playing a key role here, because you basically need to earn the points by engaging, and you can also consume the points in the future as well. So that part would be quite interesting.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I love to hear that it goes beyond the gaming sphere and that you're kind of thinking about this in a much broader way. And as you say, I think you're quite uniquely positioned to onboard people in that way and expose your community to various exciting and interesting opportunities. Just to clarify something, when you talk about meta layers or meta experiences, what do you have in mind? Are you thinking kind of Discord activities? Is it those kind of activities that people do on Zeely to kind of get points? Is it interacting with your stuff on social media? Like, how are we thinking about those meta experiences?
Yeah, so the examples that you illustrated out is what the industry has been doing. I won't really call them meta experience because, for example, Zeely is a great platform. I met the founder; is amazing. They have lots of users, millions of users. But then Zeely has been basically being adopted as almost like a software as a service for projects to drive engagement to their project. But there's never really a common layer across projects, right? So there's like what we're building is a little bit different in terms of having a meta layer on top that has a shared language. For example, my 1 point equal to your 1 point, but in Zeely, your 1 point, your 1 XP doesn't equal to another project XP.
Got it. Yes, that's true.
Yeah, so that is what we're really building, right? So having that common meta layer, and you can basically gamify it like really, really well. And I was just talking to Yad today about how we think about the meta layer, and one interesting part of that is also a lot of people misdefine gaming, right? And gaming is not only limited to really having that gameplay, but gaming happens everywhere in Web3, right? So, for example, your allocation, your whitelisting, right, like token gating experiences, all those are gaming, and all those are basically gamified experiences. And we can simplify those gamified experiences. And then the points that you earn by engaging with other projects independently, now you can use those points at that common layer. So that is what we're really thinking about. And a lot of people in gaming might be focused on the game, but actually, I would say probably miss the point of the ecosystem building around games. So I think that is really what we're striving for.
I love it. That makes a lot of sense. It kind of reminds me, I know it's not exactly the same thing, but it kind of reminds me of how I read this thing that like first time founders always focus on product, second time founders focus on distribution. And I think I've experienced something like that recently, where sometimes you get so, when you're creating anything, you get focused on the actual thing, and there's actually a load of ancillary things which are really, really important to the success of, yes, ultimately the game, the product itself, but you just need all those other things. So that's a very, very astute point, I think. Legendary, I think you have one final question for Tyler.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned the goals around the social experiences, around the growth, around the identity, and you also said gaming is, of course, not everything in the Animoca Brands ecosystem. So I'd quite like to hear from you a bit on how you're thinking about strategically when it comes to the like collaboration between some of those companies, even if it's not only like gaming to gaming, because we've seen, gaming to gaming collapse in the traditional world many times, which is certainly a cool thing, but also like collaborations across different verticals. Is that something you are strategically thinking about, or is it just too early and it's more about getting the foundation right, getting that meta layer that you've been talking about, and then thinking how those verticals or how those individual portfolio companies could collaborate?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say the priority would be tackling one vertical by one vertical, just to get our operation, our product right, and building the core infrastructure for the ecosystem to begin with. And even if we just look at gaming has a lot of genres, right? And for example, hyper casual games it had been actually quite profitable in the early days, especially when Facebook was out and the ad revenue was great, and there's arbitrary opportunities in ads as well, right? So that was the main revenue driver for hyper casual games. And just because of ads revenue and the profit that you can take from ads is basically continue to deplete, right? And then the competition for attention has been like pretty expensive increasingly. So, for example, hyper casual games is great for onboarding users, acquiring users. But then once we bring hyper casual game into the ecosystem, they play a role for user acquisition, bring users in, and then now we have the distribution for the other games. So I think gaming alone is very diverse and is a very interesting space. It's the right crowd, it's the right customers and users. And definitely would bring in the huge network effect just in gaming. But then like we would already be basically start to work with other verticals. We're taking basically like, okay, when opportunities come, we will basically test it out, experiment it. Okay, does it stick? If it doesn't stick, we move on. If it sticks, we probably expand and scale that more quickly. So that's how I'm thinking about the verticals. So there's no set thing be like we only work on something, but then I would say just because of the nature of the portfolio, we would focus first on building a core infrastructure and stabilize it.
Sounds awesome, Tyler. Thanks so much for jumping up and providing that additional context. We thought it was super newsworthy today, so we definitely wanted to dive in. Appreciate both you and Sammy for taking the time to provide some additional context for our listeners. Very, very helpful. Thank you very much. We're going to get into the Web3 Roundup now, where we get you up to speed with what else has been going on in the last 24 hours. Then we're going to hit the final headline on Snowfro and Jack Butcher. So let's get into it, starting with the Web3 Roundup. Number 1, flooring protocol includes now captains, miladies, potatoes, meebits, and other deeds. So that's all on the flooring protocol now. Number 2, Stars Arena CEO Chillpill steps down as the TVL nukes. So all of these friend tech competitors are finding it quite troublesome now, not necessarily doing so well, but also friend tech volume is down as well. Next, Uniswap to invest $12 million of Uni tokens into Ekubo protocol. Interesting to see. Number 4, Chimpers released Dojo Masters game on app. That is an interesting development. Into the creator corner, number 1, Elon adjusts creator monetization in a way that posts corrected by community notes will now be ineligible for rev share. Very important for us since we are on X all the time. Next, Damien Hirst releases new prints on Henny at $20,000 to $40,000 each. I included that because it might be relevant for currency holders, which was his first NFT drop, where the supply was much lower, I think. So I think that's seen as undervalued, those old currencies. And finally, ChatGPT adds PDF chat, can also chat with data files and other document types. Always want to keep on top of how the tech is moving so we can leverage it more as we exist in this universe all the time. Legendary, that is the Web3 Roundup and the Creator Corner news. Shall we get into the final headline of the day?
Absolutely. Let's do it. You want to set it up?
Yes, I do. So we did touch on the Jack Butcher Snowfro collaboration when it was very early, when it was teased, maybe more than a week ago or so. But it was officially announced, I think, on Friday night. It looks pretty cool, as you can see if you're on the YouTube channel. It looks very cool. And two things happened which I think are significant. One, the price completely ripped, as has been happening with various NFTs recently. I think the price was about 0.35-ish. It then ran to about 0.55, 0.6, despite the fact that everyone knew that it was coming. So this is one thing to kind of pay attention to when you're in the market where you're not sure if everyone is paying attention. Like, the preview tweets of the Snowfro collaboration was at the start of the week or before. There was a little bit of price action, but not a huge amount. But when the actual set was published for people to go and opt into, the price just rocketed like up 20% on the day or something. So that was my first observation in terms of people's price action. I didn't participate in that. I just noticed that. And then the second thing, which I think was interesting, is what Snowfro came out and said later. And I think the key quote, he said some interesting stuff about the collection itself, but he said, as paradigms shift, particularly in the area of digital art, I believe that looking back in 10 years, creators and collectors may very well consider being recognized and documented in projects such as this one to be meaningful, akin to having been collected by a traditional art institution. I thought that was very interesting, because for so many artists and creators, it seems to be that some type of mainstream traditional recognition is what people are searching for. And yet, who knows, in time going on, we might look back at this actual process. Jack Butcher is the institution in some respect, because you need to get past him and his community of voters. Because remember, there's this opt-in process before any artist gets accepted. Like, you can submit the art. Well, first you have to get through Jack Butcher, then you have to submit the art to the community. Like, do you want this to be in the OPEPN collection? And some have passed, but also there have been examples where they've failed. So I was just thinking, like, this is a really cool creation of a new type of institution, which gets that live feedback, which traditional institutions can't do, right? You have to get past one gatekeeper and maybe a few people who agree with you, but you don't get that live feedback to decide, like, look, are all the people who come to this gallery, do they like what you're about to put in there? Do they think it's cool? Do they think it's relevant? Do they think it's exciting? Whereas in this process, you have to get by Jack, who is, in some ways a gatekeeper to the thing, but then you got to get past the community of votes. So I just thought that's a super interesting way to think about it, and I'd never thought about that before. Legendary, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely love this perspective. And not only is it like a super efficient process to have it handled by your community who has that interest to only subscribe if they think it's a great thing, but also that institutional viewpoint on it, because we spoke about individual artworks versus collaboration in this space, and we spoke about the challenges on how to value them. And one of the issues that we've seen was that you just don't have enough data on that. If you have, say, a single collab between Park and Trevor Jones, which we had on Nifty Gateway, I think in 2021, And now you solve that issue because Jack Butcher has a tremendous amount of sets that still will be released in the future, with many more collaborations to come. And suddenly you have enough data to look at those collaborations, to know how to value them, and, as you said, to turn that into the digital institution that the people and artists are looking for getting into, because now you have clear data that shows you the impact of what such a collaboration could bring to your brand and to your portfolio as an artist.
Yeah, like if you think about it, where else do you want to be featured right now as a digital artist? Do you want to be featured in like a super rare newsletter? I think that would be cool. Do you want to be featured in, you know, on the foundation homepage? Remember one point in time back in the day where, like, if you got on OpenSea's homepage, that would be like, oh wow, I'm on OpenSea's homepage, like that's really good. Like, yeah, on some level you want those things, but I can't think of a cooler place to be right now than, you know, getting a set in Jack Butcher's Opepen catalog.
Yeah, you know, artists used to chase being on Nifty Gateway, being on other platforms, and now this kind of flips the script, and, you know, chase to have that collaboration with Jack, which again also helps solving his problem, because we talked about that just by the amount of sets that he has planned. He has the massive challenge of staying relevant. So if he is to become the institution, he's one step closer to solve that problem of just staying relevant.
Super interesting. Love it. Really like those thoughts. Really like the discussion today, ladies and gentlemen. We have unfortunately come to the end of the show. It's been another great show. If you don't know already, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday, usually at 7 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. BST. The time zones have changed, but they will have only changed for just 1 week. So I think we're 8 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. BST this week. We'll be back to 7 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. BST next week. We're live on X. We're live on YouTube. Follow the Modern Market account if you are not already. It's a co-host with us. And thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. Thank you, Legendary, for co-hosting. Thank you to all of our contributors. And thank you to everyone in the audience. It's been a great show. Have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye-bye.